It's Amber Bradley, your host for the unscripted side of LP. It's Talk LP podcast time.
3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it.
What's up, Talk LP fans? Podcast time. Amber Bradley coming at you, your host. Super stoked to welcome Marcus Young, Director of Asset Protection for United Supermarkets, into the Talk LP podcast hot seat. What's up, my friend?
Thanks, Amber. Glad to be here.
We are so glad you're here. Okay, silly it's taken us this long to do this, dude. I mean, we've been friends for a while, so it's like I saved the best for last. I don't know.
That's right. Long time coming.
Not that the podcast is over. Don't freak out, listeners. Don't freak out. All right. So for those that don't know you, which is silly because you're a veteran in the industry, have been around a long time. Tell us a little bit about, your background, a little bit about United, what you do for United, just to get that, out of the way so people know who you are.
Sure. So this is my 28th year with United Supermarkets. My wife always likes me to explain that I did start when I was 14 years old. And so I was an eighth grader in junior high when I started. I worked from the very, very bottom as a courtesy clerk or a sacker up into management when I turned 18 years old. So spent a good portion of the first part of my career out in the stores, learning all the different departments and so forth. And then I got a chance in 2006 when we created our first loss prevention department for United. We were coming up on a 100-year family-owned company at that time. And it's the first time we had a department. So it was me and one other person in the department. And then in 2011, I had the opportunity to become the director of the department, and which I am today. So today, United has close to 100 retail locations. We have 39 fuel centers. We have 2 distribution centers, a manufacturing plant, and also an ice plant, with about 18,000 plus team members.
Man, okay, a lot to dissect there, I think. First off, the ice plant is super cool, right? With the robot making that, like that,
Yeah.
That's really cool. But super diverse. When you think about your background in the stores, like where you started, talk a little bit about the benefit of that, right? I mean, a lot of people just kind of, not a lot, I don't know. That's me making that up, but like would stay in LP and kind of move LP department, different organizations. But for you, I'm assuming it's helpful that you get the operation because you were there, you worked in it.
Yeah, I think that's something that it's an advantage, in the position I'm in today. You really have to know how operations work in a store to understand what policies and SOPs to implement. Spending, I didn't think I was going to spend a career in retail grocery. And the career kind of found me, right? I had a passion. I knew, when I became into management, one thing I was good at was spotting a shoplifter, right? And that was many, many years ago. And it was pretty much the only thing I was really, really good at. And so I found a passion there. And that's all I knew about, asset protection, loss prevention, but just really understanding the ins and outs of how the store operates really kind of gave me that advantage to identifying cases and gaps in policies and procedures.
Yeah, I love it's cool because, I interview people that take linear paths kind of up the chain in one organization, kind of like you, and then some that kind of hop around and go up that way. So it's always fascinating to me, those that survive an organization for so long. Maybe it's because I have no political bone in my body. I really have no idea how you guys even deal with that kind of thing that's in any organization, right? Not negative, but any organization. So talk a little bit about, like, obviously there are people listening that have been starting out, would love to be in your seat, like an executive of the organization, running the program, the director. Talk a little bit about your growth into that position, right? I mean, obviously you said, look, you were super good, passionate at identifying shoplifters, and that's what you were good at there. But obviously now as a seasoned executive, like you have to grow in other areas, and take a little bit of description on, how that went for you, like at United, and how you did that, even like if you have lessons learned.
Yeah. So, at the time, when I became a director, we were still family owned. We were bought by Albertsons a little over 10 years ago, but we had 50 stores, and so we had you know a lot less team members than we do today. But I was 28 years old, becoming a director, and I think that's really young with that much responsibility. And so I look back at some of the stuff that I was challenged with in my career, and looking back at like taking the emotion out of decisions and not getting so emotional about things, right? And that comes as you progress in your career, as you figure out different ways to handle things, and really just dealing with the stress, and finding ways to channel the stress, being responsible for so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I'm always fascinated, folks like yourself in this industry, you're dealing with serious stuff, right? I mean, you're dealing with people getting hurt, you're dealing with violence, and you guys have, being in Texas where there's I don't know, is it more guns in Texas? More people wearing guns in Texas? I don't know. Don't be mad, Texans. I don't know. Is that true, Marcus? I mean, what's going on over there?
What I always tell people, not everybody in Texas has a horse, rides a horse, right, or has a gun on their side, right? Our footprint, we operate from Dallas all the way to West Texas, and then over to central New Mexico. So we actually have two states where our stores are located in our division. And so you really have to operate those as two different animals, right? Two different states, two different things. They have their own state laws and policies and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, back to your question, not everybody has guns, and like the mindset is out there, but really just tackling each state as its own.
Mean, regardless of the gun piece, I mean, are you guys definitely seeing an increase in violence when it comes to whether it's shoplifting or ORC? I'm just curious to get your take on it. Maybe not specific to United, but just like industry trends that you're seeing. Do you guys feel like, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, we're kind of part of the norm of the industry that everyone's seeing an increase in violence across the board?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely pockets of where we see increased violence, right? Not every area or trade area that we operate in has increased violence, but there's some markets that we operate in that, yes, it's increased with ORC. And, it's changed us to take different approaches, like invest in more technology, just to take it, look at it a different way, right? If we're not doing apprehensions anymore, how can we still impact our losses and the shoplifting and the theft by keeping our team members safe?
Yeah, that's a great point. You think about, okay, if you're not doing a certain thing that you've always done because things change, right? That you have to implement smarter, maybe safer ways to deal with some of these challenges. Are there certain things that you're like, and I know these were not on the questions at all. So totally random. You're like, oh, thank you for that. We'll get back to it one second. I just want to ask you this one thing.
Sure.
When you think about new things or tried and true methods that you're like, these are my go-to things that I have found recently, maybe, that have been super successful. Like, is there anything that you would like say, to your peers that are listening, hey, one thing I can't live without right now is,
Yeah, so I'd answer that question probably broadly instead of specifically, but invest in technology. Right now, I can tell you United is equipped with almost all the big technologies that are offered out there, even some of the bleeding edge technologies. And really, it changes our approach. Over the last couple of years here at United, we implemented all this technology, and we have to manage it. We're getting alerts from over a dozen different systems all day long, alerting us to shoplifting or shelf sweeps or whatever it is. And so what we did was we took some of that in-store security labor and moved it into an office, and we're building cases and managing all the alerts, responding to all the alerts. So there's consequences to their actions, right?
Yeah.
Just because they pushed out $500 out the front door, yes, we got an alert on that from different systems, right? But what do we do with that? And if we're having, dozens of these alerts coming in, it's overwhelming. And so I think there's many peers of mine that are now, understanding like we have to find a different way to operate than we did 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So those alerts aren't just noise, right? It's like that you're strategically placing your labor into, okay, let's make sense of this noise and then have that be impacted in the store. Yeah, that's a great point when you think about things that have evolved, right, over the last couple years, even last 12 months, even with all this new technology and things coming out that are like people piloting to where you're like, oh, okay, there's some data here that we can hang our hats on. Okay, so career advice. I think this is important, especially for people like yourself that, have been in the stores or have navigated their way up to the director's chair. Like for up and coming folks, listening to this saying, hey, I'm starting out, I'd love to be in that chair. Like what are your suggestions to those people out there to kind of get on their way?
Yeah, so a couple of things to that. I think it starts, your people and your team is your number one asset, right? Without them as a director or an LP executive, you're not going to be successful because it's the team that brings it together. So, I strongly believe in professional development, and that's me advocating it, paying for it, sponsoring 3 to 5 folks on the team each year to get their LPQ, LPC, or the CFI, and then actually allowing them some hours during the workday to complete those courses, right? We're all busy and the teams are working long hours, and then to expect them to try to study when they don't have time at home. And so that's one thing that we've done here at United is to really promote that professional development. The other thing is when I look back at my career, very young when I started in as an LP manager, trade shows and conferences, I really didn't see the value back then, but I can tell you over my 28 years, that's probably the number one thing that has made me successful in my professional growth is developing the relationships among my peers, among the solution providers, just because you have to have those when you get to this level.
Yeah, because so a couple things. Your first point about giving people time during the day, I haven't heard that. And I think that is awesome because you have so many folks that are like, oh no, we support professional development. But then they're like, don't do it on our time. You
Yeah,
know? Yeah. So it's super awesome. Like you guys are kind of putting your money where your mouth is to say, hey, we support it and we're going to give you time to execute it versus expecting time away from your family or, you're working long hours anyway. So kudos to you on that. I think that's awesome. The other thing, when you said sitting in that chair, because and we talk about this all the time internally, like I don't think people in your chair, if you're looking for something like maybe to add to United's repertoire or whatever, you're gonna Google it. Google, how do you stop? Like obviously you're
yeah,
gonna call your peers, which you have relationships with these conferences, yes?
yeah. That's been the number one thing for me. And like I said, that was something I dreaded when I was younger, going to conferences, meeting people, trying to, build those relationships. But, if anybody's listening that's trying to build a career in this industry, take every opportunity you get. If you're offered to go to a conference or a share group or to visit another retailer to see how they run their program, take it and learn from it because one day you will need their help because all of us, and I don't care who you are, you're going to face an event or an incident that you've never dealt with before. And you're going to be calling somebody that has that expertise to help you kind of successfully navigate those waters during that time.
Yeah, I mean, why recreate the wheel? Because it's like there's somebody out there that's been through it, I mean, even the worst of the worst, right?
Right.
Okay, so specific LP challenges to watch out for. I think I love this question because I often think what I would have told my 25-year-old self. Probably like, stop being so arrogant. That's probably was mine. But I'm curious, when you think about, you know, what you would have told your 25-year-old self. For any of 25-year-olds listening to this, which I have a huge millennial, or what are they? Are they Zoomer? I don't know what they are, but I got young people listening to this, right? So, anything that you're like, hey, look, this is what I would have said to my younger self.
Well, I think this merges with like the best career advice I've ever had.
Yes,
Um,
totally.
so number one, and this is totally me, and I'm relating to myself here. Don't take yourself so seriously. You don't
Good
have to be
one.
so serious to promote up and be by the book. And I mean, you can laugh at yourself, right? Like I said before, remove the emotion. A lot of times when you're younger and you're coming up in your career, you get so emotional if things don't go your way, decisions not made the way you think it's made, right? And I always tell my team, major on the major, minor on the minors. And the last thing I would say, it's okay not to know the answer. Everybody expects us to have the answer when you go into an executive meeting or you're dealing with a crisis. You might have not have dealt with that crisis before, and it's okay to say, I don't know. I'll find out, right? And I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Yeah, because it's like, I think this is kind of counterintuitive. Like, I think, like, I thought when I was young, if my boss or the C suite's like asking me a question, that I should know it. And if I don't know it, just make it up or just act like you know it, which I think, and this is what I think you might be saying too, is like, I think the upper level folks can appreciate someone that says, I don't know, like, I'm going to figure it out though, instead of, acting like a know it all.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's my 25-year-old self totally needed that advice for sure. Okay, so I like this one. I have all these questions are my favorite, but if you weren't an LP executive, what? Okay, I'm gonna guess here. I don't know. Is it like a chef? No, I don't.
No.
Uh, So, if you weren't an LP executive, what would you be? What career did Marcus Young miss out on?
Well, I'll say it this way. I think one of my sisters in the industry told you one time she'd be a farmer. I would definitely not be a farmer, okay? Not to mention her name.
Yep.
But specifically, looking back at it, I've been here since I was 14 years old. Did I see myself working in the store the rest of my life? No. But did the career find me, loss prevention, asset protection? And I think it did. I have a passion, right? I wake up every morning happy that I get to come to work and do what I do. And I know people are saying like, "Oh, you're just saying that." No, but the people that know me, I'm happy and I'm excited. Every day is different. There's different challenges. It's not task driven. It's more than that. You get to impact change for the whole entire organization, and you get to impact people, right? And you get to grow people. And so, that's if you wanted another profession, I'd probably be I'd probably be in real estate, maybe. I went to college for business management. Yeah, I didn't go for anything, specific. Or I'd own like a small business, a entertainment venue or something like that. But
Yeah, I think you'd be a good host of like VIPs at places. I think that'd be cool. Like sports wise, like a bunch of NBA or NFL stars or something. Like I think that'd be cool. Okay. I'm curious, because obviously that's a huge thing to wake up every morning and be happy about where you're going to work. I'm curious, and obviously this wasn't on the thing, but that's okay. Your favorite, if you had to pick a favorite thing about the LP career, like your LP career, like other than doing this podcast with me, like what are your favorite things? Is it the investigative part? Is it the dealing with your solution provider partners, which is always fun, or is it, solving puzzles like to solve shrink at United? I'm just curious, like what is your favorite part?
I said it earlier, every day is different, but to get more specifically, you still have that rush, that you can handle a crisis, or you can, impact somebody's life. Sometimes, we're seen as impacting people's life in a negative way, but, I always say it's divine intervention. And there's been many times in my career where I've had somebody that I've encountered, through my position, has come back and seen me on the street and thanked me, and it's changed their life, right? Or it's being there, at somebody's worst moment, because they made a bad choice. And we always say here at United, the just because you made a bad choice, you're not a bad person, right? We're all human, and just giving them that dignity, right? So, and leading a team too. I mean, leading a team is fun. It's enjoyable. We've grown the team here to close to 75 folks on the AP team. So, it does bring us challenges, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's neat. I love that. Giving people their dignity, even and what's interesting is it's their worst moment. It's yours. Like, oh, okay, I've done this, I don't know, 1,000 times before, but still, that person, when you're walking into that room to talk to them about a bad choice, like obviously it's life changing for them. I think it's really neat that you guys you recognize that. Okay, I think. Oh, I did miss a question. I knew it. I was like, I love this question. Okay, it's the solution provider one. And
Okay.
so we'll wrap up with this because I think it's super important, right? If there's solution providers listening to this, which you'd be smart if you were, because all my executives I interview, we ask this question, which is advice for solution providers trying to provide you solutions.
Okay. So I'll be smart by trying to spin this in a positive way. None of us in our roles would be successful without our solution providers, right? But with that being said, there's tons and tons of solution providers, right? And so, constantly, at a director or higher level, you have LinkedIn, you have your cell phone, you have email, you get calls, emails, about solutions all day long, right? And so, from my experience, and like I said, we use a lot of technologies and solutions here at United. Um, that the solution providers that build a relationship with me and try to understand how United operates in our division, our footprint, I think that develops selling opportunities, right? Instead of answering the call and then I get a sales pitch within the first 15 seconds, right? And so building those relationships, and really to everybody else, even if you are not interested in a certain solution now, what's to say 6 months from now, tomorrow, a year from now, that you need that solution, right? And so I would challenge everybody to go out there and educate yourself when people bring you different solutions and products, et cetera, because you can store that in your toolbox and you can pull it out the day that you need it, and you have a contact and you already understand what the solution provides. So,
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice because you think about it too. It's like, I know you guys get bombarded for sure, but it is nice when you have it like a solution provider where you're not treated like a jerk, right? You're like, uh, you might not have time to respond in 7 paragraphs why you don't need the solution, but
right.
your point is a great one. You don't know when you might need people, so don't burn a bridge being a jerk, because
That's right.
you now granted the solution provider, like you should try to learn, who you're pitching and actually give a crap about them sincerely, before you start going in on the sales pitch. One of the things I hate, you're so polite, but I'll be a little more candid. I hate on LinkedIn because somebody's always pitching people something, right? You get pitched a bunch of stuff, I get pitched a bunch of stuff, and you're like, okay, if I connect with you on LinkedIn and then the next thing in the next 2 minutes, you're sending me a pitch via a message, what is that? I mean, I immediately go in and unfollow or unconnect those people, don't you? What is that?
Yeah, I don't know if I go in and unconnect. I'm not a heavy user of LinkedIn, but I do check it and I do see that exact. Yeah. they
I
send
don't
it.
understand that. So key advice on that one is like build a sincere relationship, like actually care who you're talking to. But
That's right.
Marcus Young, we appreciate you stepping into the Talk LP podcast. Hot seat finally get you in here. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you, bud.
Thank you, Amber. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Okay, keep listening to Talk LP podcast on the Talk LP News app. Download that. Follow us at Let's Talk LP. All right, guys. Talk at you later. See ya.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.